The narrative shifts gears with the unexpected arrival of a stranger at the estate, a man whose appearance disrupts the otherwise quiet and oppressive atmosphere of the family home. His name is Baron V, a seasoned vampire hunter who arrives in the region with a grim sense of purpose. It is soon revealed that the Baron has been following a trail of deaths and unnatural occurrences that have led him to this particular estate. He has been hunting Carmilla, or rather, Mircalla, for years, ever since she first began her reign of terror in various parts of Europe. His arrival, though abrupt, is welcomed with a mixture of confusion and relief. Laura's father is initially wary of the stranger, but the Baron's knowledge and manner quickly convince him of his legitimacy. The Baron claims that he knows exactly what is happening to Laura, that she is the latest victim of Carmilla's bloodlust, and explains that only by eliminating the vampire will Laura's suffering end. The Baron is not simply a well-meaning traveler or a local doctor. He is a man with a deep, almost scholarly understanding of vampires, their origins, and their methods of hunting. He speaks with authority, and his very presence commands respect. But there is an eerie coldness to him, as if he has seen too much of the horrors that he is hunting. He is a man driven by duty, and his sole mission is to rid the world of these creatures that prey upon humanity. The Baron's explanations of vampires and their dark nature provide a crucial backstory to the events of the novella. He details the origins of vampires, describing them as ancient beings tied to dark, infernal forces, creatures cursed to walk the earth for eternity, feeding on the blood of the living. The vampire, he says, is a being of darkness, neither fully alive nor fully dead, and is bound by a curse that can never be broken by normal means. These creatures are tied to the supernatural forces of evil and can only be destroyed by specific methods that neutralize. Vampires, according to the Baron, are not simply evil creatures, but beings that embody a primal, malevolent force. They are creatures of seduction and destruction, and their existence has haunted the human world for centuries. The Baron goes on to explain the different ways vampires can be identified, their strengths and their weaknesses. The vampire's ability to charm its victims, to hypnotize and manipulate them, is one of the most dangerous aspects of their power. The Baron describes how a vampire can feed slowly, subtly draining its victim's vitality over time without the victim ever realizing what is happening until it is too late. In Carmilla's case, the Baron reveals, the vampire has been feeding on Laura's blood over an extended period, slowly draining her life force. This method is particularly dangerous because it leaves no obvious signs of injury, making it almost impossible to detect the vampire's influence until it is too late. Carmilla has been careful in her feeding, preying on Laura's vulnerability, and leaving her weakened, but not yet fully drained. The Baron's explanations also delve into the vampire's immortality. A vampire, once created, is condemned to live forever, but not without consequence. The vampire is a creature of corruption, forever bound to the forces of darkness. There is no redemption for them, no cure for their condition. The only solution is their complete destruction, which can only be achieved by a very specific set of actions. The Baron's tone is grave as he explains the ritual that will be required to defeat Carmilla. To kill her, he must first confront her in her resting place, which he believes to be somewhere on the estate. Once he has located her lair, he will need to use a series of tools to destroy her. A wooden stake to pierce her heart, holy symbols to weaken her, and fire to ensure that her remains are eradicated from the earth. With his knowledge and his plan in place, the Baron prepares for the confrontation with Carmilla. He warns Laura and her father that the process will be dangerous. The vampire is cunning, and she will not surrender without a fight. The Baron stresses the importance of their cooperation and caution, as Carmilla will likely use all her powers to avoid destruction. Laura, meanwhile, is in a state of shock. She is both relieved and terrified by the arrival of the vampire hunter. While she longs for the suffering to end, she is also acutely aware of how close she has come to death at Carmilla's hands. The horror of the attack still lingers in her mind, and she knows that Carmilla is capable of great cruelty. At the same time, Laura's feelings toward Carmilla are complicated. Despite the horror, there is a part of her that is still drawn to the vampire, a strange, magnetic pull that she cannot entirely escape. She is tormented by the idea of destroying the creature who has claimed so much of her life. The Baron, for his part, is unfazed by Laura's emotional conflict. He is a man on a mission, and his focus is singular: to rid the world of the vampire who has preyed upon this family. He is prepared for whatever comes next, and he makes it clear that there can be no mercy when it comes to creatures like Carmilla. The preparations take place over the course of several days. The Baron and Laura's father search the estate for clues, while the Baron gathers the necessary tools for the confrontation: stakes, holy water, garlic, and other items from ancient vampire lore. There is a growing sense of tension as they prepare to face Carmilla, knowing that the final confrontation is inevitable. The night of the confrontation arrives. The Baron, Laura, and her father have located Carmilla's lair in a remote part of the estate, a place that has long been shrouded in mystery and superstition. The lair is an ancient crypt, hidden away from the rest of the estate and covered in a thick layer of dust and decay. The air is thick with the stench of death, and there is an oppressive silence that hangs over the place, as if the very earth is holding its breath. Carmilla is nowhere to be seen, but the Baron is certain she is close. He warns everyone to be on high alert. The lair is a dangerous place, and Carmilla's powers are at their peak in this dark, forgotten space. The tension is palpable, and Laura feels as though she is walking into the jaws of death itself. The Baron, undeterred, moves forward with his plan. He enters the lair and begins the ritual to destroy the vampire. He begins by placing holy symbols around the perimeter of the lair, creating a protective barrier that will weaken Carmilla's powers. Next, he begins to search for her resting place, a crypt or coffin where the vampire will lie dormant during the day. He eventually locates it, hidden in a dark corner of the crypt. With grim determination, the Baron raises a stake, prepared to pierce Carmilla's heart. But before he can act, there is a sudden, chilling movement from within the shadows. Carmilla emerges, her eyes glowing with a predatory hunger. She is not caught off guard. She has been waiting for this moment. Her form is like a shadow, graceful and terrifying, and her gaze is fixed on the Baron with an intensity that could freeze blood. What follows is a violent, desperate struggle. Carmilla uses all of her vampiric powers, her speed, her strength, and her ability to manipulate the minds of her enemies. The Baron strikes first, but Carmilla is quick to retaliate, her fangs gleaming as she attacks. Laura watches, paralyzed with fear, as the battle between the vampire hunter and the vampire rages. The fight is brutal, but in the end, it is the Baron's knowledge and experience that win out. With a final, decisive strike, he drives the wooden stake into Carmilla's heart, and the vampire's reign of terror comes to an end. She lets out a piercing scream as her body writhes in agony, but the vampire hunter does not relent. He presses the stake deeper, ensuring her destruction. As Carmilla's body turns to dust and her power fades, the darkness that has plagued Laura and her family is finally lifted. The silence that follows is deafening, and the horror of the past days seems to evaporate into the night air. With Carmilla destroyed, the Baron's task is complete. Laura's health begins to improve, though she is forever scarred by the ordeal. She reflects on the events that transpired, the horror of having been preyed upon by the vampire, and the strange bond that had existed between herself and Carmilla. She will never fully understand the reasons behind Carmilla's actions, but she knows one thing for certain. She is free from the vampire's grasp. The Baron leaves soon after the destruction of Carmilla, having completed his mission. He gives a final, solemn farewell to Laura and her father, warning them to remain vigilant, as other vampires may be lurking in the shadows, waiting for their moment to strike. As he disappears into the night, Laura is left to contemplate the darkness that has been banished from her life, and the darkness that may one day return.